right? We not having that. We want to build a community, forever. Kids win, we win. Period.
You know what I mean?
I had to learn it, man. Like it was crazy. Welcome back, classes in session. Welcome back to another episode of AM University. I'm your host, Antoine Miller. I believe this is episode 12. Rashan Prailow. How you doing, young man?
Doing good.
How you doing, young man? And I got a surprise guest, Terrell Brown, that I didn't even know was coming. But it's all love. Yeah, it's all love. The more the merrier. The more the merrier. So I'm gonna be honest with y'all. Like I'm really excited about this episode more so than the usual episodes I have because everybody thinks this is about basketball and just sports or whatever like that. But on a surface level, yeah. But I'm a guy that I'm a solution oriented type of person that want to get to the root cause of problems, with kids and people or whatever like that. I think that the positions that y'all in right now, you coming from Wall Street, you working at the White House, being a consultant now. I think we all know the stigma that we have. We it's either music or sports, right? Coming from where we come from, right? But nobody talks about these type of stories enough, right? Like these type of stories that y'all encountered is not the norm for us. That's a problem. Like that's a problem that's not the norm, right? So we need to start making that the norm. And like you don't have to go down these two avenues in order to be successful in America. Like why are we putting that type of stigma on us? So I'm really excited about this, this conversation that we're having, and we're gonna go from right there. So just to give a brief background, actually of both of you guys, just give a brief background and timeline of you coming from the city, you getting to where you're going, and the third part, which is the most significant part, y'all coming back and giving back. Because to me, that's what success truly is. Everybody got their whole idea of what success is, the money and things like that. I've never believed that. You're using your God-given ability to affect change. That's success to me. Nice. So just give me a brief timeline so everybody that's watching can know where y'all come from and what y'all doing now.
Appreciate that. First, thanks for having me, bro. I truly appreciate it, man. I think this is the first non-basketball interview you had that you're having at this moment. So I feel good about that. We're making history. But I did play ball though. I played for Pennock, so I gotta get some credit. I played for Pennock. I gotta get some credit for that. In middle school.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we won the championship at East Middle. So I'm not a baller, but I paid my dues in the city a little bit. I played for Pennock. But Rashan Prailow, as Antoine just said, was born and raised here in the city. I'm from East Camden. Went to public school in East Camden my entire life, from kindergarten through my graduation from Wilson in 2007. And now I'm here at 31, so I'm no longer the youngest guy in the room anymore when I step in the rooms. But I would say throughout my 20s to where I'm at now was a whirlwind of an experience for me, because I didn't come out of Wilson with the intention to go to college or to become an academic and potentially work in government and try to get involved in politics. Kind of what you alluded to, it was more of a spiritual thing and more of a deep awakening that kind of moved me in that direction. I had no aspirations of being a politician or anything like that when I grew up. But as I became educated and I started to evolve personally, and I was fixing myself and building myself up, I seen a need to try to do that for other people in the community, other young guys and young girls who are experiencing things that I exactly went through or even worse, and that was where the commitment came from. So I was intentional about trying to give back at any level I could throughout every part of my journey. So when I left Wilson, as I said, in 2007, I went to Camden County in 2009, dropped out, and then I ended up going back in 2010. But even during that time, when I built my confidence up and I was doing well academically there after like my first year, I was going to elite, reading to the kids, doing things like that where there was no social media back in 2011. Well, no Instagram, Facebook was out, I didn't have one. So I was always doing small things to try to give back because I felt like it was a requirement. Then when I left Camden County, I went to Penn. I lived in Philly for 3 years. Even then, I would come back to Camden County, and my give back kind of expanded. Now it was like, I want to work with the administrators at Camden County to help other students realize the power that this place can give you if you do your thing. You know, you do well academically, you can transfer wherever you want. So I was trying to pull people through the pipeline from Camden County and get them to Penn, or just help them kind of take Camden County more seriously so they could transfer to other schools and change their lives. From there, I went to DC, right? And even when I was in DC, kept coming back. Now I was coming back talking about my government experience and working for Obama and different things. When I was an intern in 2015, I was coming back doing it. Then I went back to the White House in July of 2016 and finished the last 6 months of the administration. I was coming back more. And that's when I was able to have the ability to bring other people to the White House. I brought 3 kids from North Camden there on a tour, took pictures with them and just kind of let them vibe out. And they came as they were, which was big for me because obviously in a lot of corporate spaces, I wouldn't say you have to put a mask on, but there's protocol. That's what I like to call it. So you have to wear your suit, right? You have to come in this particular way. So a lot of those people I was working with in the administration didn't really know my background. So now you see these kids, coming through. They got their Air Ones on, the jeans, they ain't all black. So I'm like, cool, and it made me feel comfortable. But it also was a point of validation for me because when I was able to walk around through the executive office building with these kids and I seen how other people was reacting to them, it made me feel like I arrived, like they was helping me and they didn't even know it because I didn't feel all the way comfortable with letting people in and seeing my real self. You know what I mean? And that's just a reality. I think everybody goes through those vulnerable moments when you're in a new environment. It's hard for you to kind of truly be authentically yourself because your authentic self might not be who you are supposed to be in that 100%, moment. 100%. You know what I mean? 100%. So, that was like the highlight of my experience at the White House. Not even me being there, but when I brought those kids there, and they were in middle school, I think they were Pine Point students at the time, and to see that I was able to bring them there and let them feel comfortable with who they were, I hope that it opened their eyes a little bit. Like, that you could be just how you are and go anywhere you want in the world. You know what I mean? And that was the biggest thing for me. They helped me more than I probably helped them at that time, for real.
I never heard that story from you. Yeah, that's good. So actually, Terrell, we can start off with the next question. So you came from Wall Street, again, from Camden to Wall Street. Now, again, you back helping, the same with both of y'all. So, because I got to portray everything back to sports because I'm a coach, right? So in my experiences, I'm only 34, right? So I'm pretty sure y'all can allude to this as well. Everybody in our fields, and you in business, so I know it's like this. Like, they look at it as an old man's game. Like, you got to put in your time, your 30, 40, 50 years in order to get this position. Like, because you 28 or something like that, you can't think or you can't lead. Like, the most outlandish type of thinking. But I understand it because y'all from the 60s and the 70s and type of stuff like that. Y'all prehistoric. Like, so, talk about that for a second and tell me, I want to hear both of y'all perspective because I'm really interested in both of y'all fields. Politics, business, I'm coaching. Tell me, what do you think that stems from?
Yeah, I think it's for me at least. Well, first, Twan, thanks for having me even as a guest. I'm kind of in Wayne's position today, so shout out to Wayne.
You said it. I didn't say it, Wayne, but go ahead.
Smalls, I said I can't let your seat be vacant, bro.
You know that's your man.
Yeah, but no, when I think it's one just when people are younger in general. So like your family, mother, father, uncle, whatever, they see you as a younger person, so they feel the need like they should be running stuff in control. And then from when they're older, they're like certain things they see you growing and they're like certain things remind them of what they didn't do or who they didn't become. And so it takes a real interesting individual like that's very humble in themselves and comfortable, but also willing to support and let you grow because they're still growing and developing who they are because you can inspire them. So luckily, it's like this tug of war pull constantly, right? So a lot of times, even when I'm making these decisions, people 50, 60 years old, and I have to make the final decision, I have to do a Jedi mind trick with them and let them feel more in control for that moment. But then we got to come back and be, realistic. So I try to have each get to know the person individually, right, as a person, and let them know, are you comfortable with this in this role and doing these different things? Because I need your support, right, and you need my support. We need each other, because if you're not organized and unified, you can't do anything of it at a mass scale. So let's look at it. Let's take the personal aspect out. Let's say,
let me ask you a real selfish snippet of it though. Why do you have to do that? You're the best person for the job. You're the best person for the job. Why do you have to? And that's what leaders do. Exactly what you're saying. That's what leaders do. But why do you have to do that?
I mean, I don't think you don't have to do that. But I want long-term sustainable relationships. So a lot of those people, I try to turn every one of them into an advocate if I can. And they've been great in helping. Like my partner, she's a lot older than I am. Been on Wall Street for 30 years. But in our segment of the business, I've run this mainly business, right? We still collaborate. I take our ideas and different things like that. So I'm looking at it more as I want to do this together, have good people around me and do that. And older people, they are wise, right? So it's still some stuff I know that we need to learn being younger. So I always look at it as collaborative. We both learning. So if they're open to a new learning curve and I'm open as well, we can go ahead and develop. But if either one of us is kind of stuck, I think that's where it really makes it tough. And then a lot of people, it's just that misunderstanding. And then sometimes you really do got to part ways because you're growing. And today, with the internet and just globalization, things are growing a lot faster. And so part of the reason why I think even when you look at a place like Camden, I'm like, just the construct here, we not even able to do it. I'm wondering what was these people literally doing for the last 30 years? Like, what was y'all doing? Like, where's the business community? Like me, I've always wanted to, we saw the street guys, they were really entrepreneurs. And you had to get into the streets. But there's really not a business community in Camden. There's some people that's doing business. So I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody, but not a robust business community.
What you said the first time.
And so as a young guy, who do we have to even aspire to be outside of an athlete or celebrity or entrepreneur or someone selling drugs? $1 million question. Right. So me, I come back, and part of the give back is to go, and as well as Rashan, to show them you can do well, still be successful, but from a real business standpoint, right? Institutionalized, big business, and you can do this and have anything that you want to have and still have respect, power, and everything else. And that's really true meaning to me. Because first you got to start where you from. I know so many people from Camden that's really successful, but they don't come back. Even in sports, we be like, yo, why this person, they leave, they never come back, they don't do nothing for the hood. I'm like, that's crazy. So I'm like, that don't never made sense to me. I'm like, so when I get in position, I'm going to do the opposite. I get why they don't do it, right? Because a lot of people mad, family, people keep asking them for stuff. I get all that. But I said, we able to change the cycle. Everybody has a segment of influence.
I want you to answer. So I got two for you. I want you to answer what my original question was, but also, like you just said, and I don't know what the right or wrong answer is, but when we come back to, our upbringing and want to help, right? The negativity is like I don't know about y'all, and I never met Nipsey in my life, but like that hurt me to the core, like what he was doing at that block, and for him to get killed by his own people, like it really, like it might as well have been in Camden because it really threw me for a loop. What do we do when we have, and we know deep down inside it's just trauma. These people not bad people. Right? But what do you do with the situation that you in with that? It's just like, I really don't know what the answer is. So answer those two for me from your perspective.
So the first question about why when you're young it's hard for people to kind of, I guess, accept you in a leadership role.
Yep.
I would say, man, I struggled with that my entire life. Like even me saying I'm 31, like I was in high school when you was in high school, but you probably would never know because I look so young. Nope. That's why I'm trying to grow my beard out and do different things. I've struggled with that my whole life. Yeah. My mind is sharp, man. I can go to our history later, how I remember when we was in high school together when we played football for the high, but I don't want to divert off the question. So I would say that it's hard for people in our community, and I want to talk directly to the black community. I don't want to speak for the Latino community because I wasn't raised in a Latin family, although I'm partially Latino myself. But in the black community, I think we struggle with that because historically, and I'm going back like long ago, like in slavery times, we've been so stripped of power that a lot of our old heads who we look up to are still chasing this thing called power. So when you're young and you're trying to assume power, it's hard for them to relinquish something that they never had or that they're still trying to get. So when they see you coming along, it's like, who do you think you are? I'm 52.
A threat.
You 29. Like, what makes you think that you're more equipped than I am? Well, you actually might be, you know, but it's just that whole mindset of, you know, kind of what Terrell said, like they haven't reached their goal or they haven't reached where they're trying to go. So it's like they can't fathom in their mind that someone 20 years younger than them has the right answer and they don't. And I think that is a real bad problem in the black community because just of our history here. You know what I mean? Like it's hard for us to kind of pass the baton when we never had it passed to us. So a lot of these people in leadership positions that are older, they had to scratch, claw, and fight for everything. And now they got there or they're still trying to get there and they see you coming along. It's like, oh, you got to put your time in. But it's like, I've been working for 11 years too, right? I've been putting in a grind for 11 years. I'm ready. You know, obviously there are some things that I probably don't know just due to, you know, experience. But at the same time, I'm equipped for this. I'm prepared for this. And I think that in our black community, just from our history in this country, it's hard for us to kind of see that. Like we can't, it doesn't make sense. But in other cultures, I think they don't struggle with that. I see young, you know, white folks and other people get into leadership positions really quick. And you can even see that in corporate. One of my good friends, she's working for a foundation. I don't want to call her business out there, but she's working for a prominent foundation. And we had a conversation and she was saying how non-black coworkers go from analyst roles to senior roles like this. Whereas with people of color, particularly black people, you got to put in your time 6-7 years before you get a senior role. And we see these things happen all the time in corporate. So when you see it in our everyday community activity, whether that's you trying to become a head coach at a young age or you trying to run for office at a young age or become a principal or whatever you're trying to do, is always going to be that pushback of people feeling like, how old are you? And to give you a quick example, when I was on a campaign trail in 2018, I ran for council. I was 29 at the time. People really cared less about the policies I had in mind. The predominant question I got was, how old are you? And I didn't even have the beard yet. I didn't have the beard. Yeah, it was how old are you? They didn't care about if I could do good work. They didn't care about what I really had to offer, where my passion was. It was just like, but how old are you? And it was mind-boggling to me, like, why should that be the first thing you ask? And I had a counter to that question. It would be like, well, a lot of times, you know, elders in the community say young people aren't involved in politics. Here I am. You know what I mean? So give me a shot. Like you guys say that you want young people to be involved and you want young people to do things. You have to entrust in young people for them to want to get involved in something. So give me an opportunity to show you what I can do. You know, and that was usually my rebuttal to that question. But people ask me, how old are you? Oh, you look so young. How old are you? You look like you're like 20. I'm like, no, I'm actually about to be 30 soon, you know. And it was an interesting thing, but I learned how to get over that question. And when they seen that I knew what I was talking about a little bit, they would warm up to me. But it's just something I think we deal with just due to our history in this country and our lack of power. I think that's what it really comes back to. It's just a lack of power, man.
I'll speak on that because, I mean, pretty much every day I go through a power struggle with someone or a client we dealing with. They might, whether, like as you say, in corporate, somebody white may go up faster, right, just because. So, and 30 years old, you know, when I see these guys, I'm like, whatever their salary is, like one guy, you know, for example, the other day, I'm like, this is just the standard. This is the basics. So I had to tell him, I said, you know, this is a good partner of ours too. But I told him, send me the breakdown of all the numbers. You give me half the numbers. I just did the calculation, but the numbers aren't even adding up. And this is the basics. We haven't even went another notch up. But I shouldn't have to go through that with you to do so. But luckily, and you know, people would say, you know, like confrontation. I don't avoid that, right? If I have to be, if what's perceived as confrontation to fight for you, I said, you gotta fight number one just to get the standard.
I want all of it.
Yeah, I know, exactly. So I said already, I go in there like, you know, you have to take the same sports mentality. I go in there just as an assassin. So I said, I'm not only gonna fight for this right here, the standard, to get up to the standard, but also I'm gonna fight for the extra piece already. And if not, I'm going to work to put you out of business. Everything in the corporate anything, you have to think that way just because, even like as Donald Trump and Obama just was saying, with power, it doesn't matter who you are, any color, most of them really don't want to concede at all because it's the shift, and now they feeling whatever the perks and the interest in enjoying what they get to enjoy for that period of time. But me, I'm like the opposite, and I told even the other guy, I'm like, the world is big enough. There's enough for everybody, more than enough. And I'll talk about COVID. Like just now, they was telling, like COVID there's been $21 trillion that's been transferred during COVID.
100%.
And they talk about the little PPE money that we got.
Right.
I said, but you don't realize somebody made trillions, not even billions, trillions. But now, if I go to you and ask for $2 billion, that's a problem. No, we should be asking for $50 billion. Zuckerberg and them, when they got big money, when Gates gave him $500 million, people are like, oh, he was 26 years old. But why should you not be able to ask? I'm like, that's the standard. I'm like, that's the standard. I'm like, that's the basic standard.
It's cultural, though. Going back to what I said, is a cultural fit, right? Like the average successful black person in the community, and let's just talk local, like Camden or in our surrounding areas. If a 25-year-old came to them, they're going to be very reluctant to part ways with their money, even if you got $1 million idea. Not to say Zuckerberg didn't hear a lot of no's because he did, but it took somebody to invest in him. The same thing with the kids from Instagram. They was in their early 20s when they became billionaires. You know, so it's like people in different cultures invest in their youth in a different way than we invest in ours. Now, to give our community credit, I know brothers, man, who was my little league head coach when I was 9 years old. I'm 31. They still coaching. They're giving back to the community, going hard. They transformed my life, showed me what a disciplined man is supposed to be like, and just taught me a lot of stuff that I didn't understand until I became an adult. Yeah, I mean, these dudes aren't talked about. These dudes are the saviors of our black community, man. My life was shaped by my coaches in organized sports. Hard work, not complaining, you know, standing up straight, speaking and making eye contact. All the stuff that I utilize in business and my professional life, I learned as a kid here. You know, and that's why my commitment to the community is the way it is. And I try my best to figure out ways to give back in an organic way because I know how influential people were in my life, even though I didn't get it. Like I still went left, like and during my adolescent years. But when I matured and I was able to make the transition, I was like, damn, that's a great guy. Like he spent countless hours with us a week, being our fathers basically. When we didn't even realize what he was being.
I wish you'd have got it at the time.
Yeah, because going back to my
at least you got it at 25.
Going back to shouting out Pinnock, when I played at East Middle, we was on the same team. We won the chip our 8th grade year. I was sitting in the wood, but I learned so much just from being on the wood. Because I worked my ass off at practice.
I was at Morgan. I wanted to play for Pinnock so bad.
And he forced everybody to work hard. It don't matter if you was the last dude on the bench. It was no slackers at practice. Everybody put in that work. And it was a respect there, and it taught me a lot of things. Like damn, like that just that grit, and like I said, so I just think it's cultural for us. Like going back to how Zuckerberg and these kids in their mid-20s, early 20s get support from their community in a different way than how we support ours. You look around, we got like farm factories now for football. Right. You know, kids play year round, and I love it. Right. But you know, maybe 3 out of the 60 kids that come through the pipeline gonna make it to the league, which is still cool. Right. But part of what I'm challenging myself with now at 31, because I can't use the excuse that I'm young no more. You know, I went from 26 to 31 really fast. So it's like, how can I work with other people, like-minded individuals in the athletic world, as well as in the academia space to say, okay, what can we do to create farms of intellectual stimulation for young people?
And if you look at all these episodes, I allude to that all the time. The majority of the world is normal. And most of y'all are not gonna do this for a profession. Y'all need to realize that. And that's the whole premise of what we're talking about. But now that it's on my mind, let me ask y'all the next thing. I want y'all to 2 questions.
Yes.
I don't know how y'all feel about adults. I'm done with adults. like period. I don't believe in adults, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because I think, again, so much trauma and so much baggage that they accumulated over the years. Like they just like, okay, this is the system, what America ever gave me. Like, that's my system. That's what I have to do. It's way too fearful over there to try that risk. So I'm not doing that. This ain't that bad. So let me just rock out with that. And anything new and innovative, they just want to run for the border, right? So,
go ahead.
Look, but the backside of the question is, this new generation of kids is the total opposite. They are radicals.
And I would even say, shoot, as a millennial, I'm 31, so I would even say I'm part of that generation. I still feel like I'm a part of that changing tide where, you know, like you said, like people aren't, the status quo thing don't make sense. Because
makes sense.
And with the world being so globalized, like Terrell said, we have access, and you too, right? We all still millennials. We have access that a lot of people before us didn't have. Like the world is really small. Like me and him was talking about that on our way here, where now you can go online and you can get engaged in some Amazon sales and sell to somebody in North Korea. Like before, that was just like unfathomable to people, especially in the hood. Like you're here,
right?
Like, you know what I mean? So the world has changed so much, and I do agree with you that some old people, like how they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I think that's true, but I don't like to believe in it.
Okay.
You know, I think that people can change.
Okay.
I just think that it takes a mass movement to change people that are older, I would say. And I think that when they see young people galvanizing and organizing, they won't have no choice but to follow suit. And that's what I'm passionate about in Camden, specifically in like the political and governmental spaces, that it's been one way for so long that I feel like if the young people gathered and we just separated ourselves from the institutionalized space of Camden politics and we kind of came together, that we could be a part of the change for something different. Not saying that what is in place is wrong. And I think people always get defensive when you say, you know, I think this should be done a different way. I'm not saying you bad or you trashy or you a bad politician or you just a bad person, but I truly think that this way might be better.
Constructive.
Yeah, and you know, and I think that if young people, if we work more to organize and kind of express our views in a different way, then the old guard wouldn't have no choice but to change.
Yeah, and I look at it as like, with the old, like I said, how to address older people, right? Because my uncle Keith Benson, I want to be where I am today without him.
Oh, that's my man.
So, you know, it's in everything we talk to each other. Frank like Sinatra. It's, hey, listen, this is crazy. This is not crazy. He say, no, this is.
Right.
But I look at the older people, their fear as risk management. So part of investing, right, risk management, you know, rule number one is not to lose money. So yeah, I got all these crazy ideas, but let me use them as risk management to make sure I got an answer for every reason why this could go wrong. And then when I know that could go wrong, I put in these, you know, little metrics and how I can now execute my plan. So look at dealing with older people like fish. I eat the meat, spit out the bones. Old people love giving advice. They love telling you what to do even if they have no idea what they're talking about. So I'm like, that's a lot of free information and gain.
Right. If
you ask Ernst & Young, they're going to charge you some consultant fees.
Yeah, 100%.
So I said, I can get a lot of free information and gain by learning, and I'm going to take this information and apply it. Like a lot of old people, they say, listen, your environment, the friends that you hang around, all these things that they told us, for the majority, are true, right? They don't know. And then sometimes I think now as globalization and different things has changed, especially with millennials not necessarily having really income, jobs, assets due, because when you get out of college, you're stuck with really a mortgage, those student loans. They didn't have that. So it's a whole different time. So our process is different, plus with Gen Z and technology. So I think the older people, they've got comfortable, as you said, to a certain extent in what they could do. But as Obama did, what I think the guy, whatever, the Black Godfather guy, he didn't believe Obama could become president. Yeah. But he still helped them. All I care about, even if you don't believe, help. So as long as you help, and you may not believe it until you see it. So even some of our partners, they didn't believe some of the things that I would tell them would happen. And now they've seen me execute, and they're some of the biggest advocates. So now when I come to them with something else, they're the ones out there sponsoring, saying, no, we need to do this. They're pushing things forward. So I look at them, okay, now they're blocking, they're tackling, they're my fullbacks, my linemen, wide receivers, etc. So I think part of our job, don't take so much of it personal. Sometimes it is, but look at it as like, okay, this is a good challenge. And now once I'm able to do this, boom, come back. I'm going to keep coming back. So you got to fight. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to fight for doing anything of substance at a major level.
Right.
So I think doing that, and when we take, just like a ball player, I think some of the times, as you will tell a kid, hey, listen, well, you got to keep grinding. You ain't good enough yet to be a starter, or you ain't better than that player.
Right.
And then they go quit and go to a different team.
Right.
It's like, he's like, the coach don't like me.
Right.
It ain't nothing to do with me, ain't like you. Or I may think, okay, well, I want to challenge you to push yourself to another level. I see something else in you.
Right.
And similar to them. So now it's like, how can I look at it holistically? Is it just this? And now this is somebody, a lot of people are, this is somebody jealous that's not, I need to get away from them. But am I looking at this holistically as well? Because now as we get older, the Gen Z say that, oh, now that's just an old head. He don't know what he's talking about. I get that all the time. Oh, this dude, man, even though they like think I'm their same age, look like I'm in high school, they say, but now they know like, okay, so I'm like, all right, well, you proved to me that this works. So I go into it the opposite and say, because I'm in the money business, you show me how this makes money and I'll put in money. If you can't show me how to make money, it's just a dream, and it's just a pipe dream. It's all spec.
Right.
So I take the person. So I think part of as what we're doing is we start executing, and then coming back and showing they like that, because older people like to feel like they right. They like other people. I mean, I think people in general, they like to feel a part of what you're doing, right, and not left out. And you're not being arrogant. You're also, paying homage, to history. All these different things with that, whole power struggle. So I try to give them the least path of resistance. And once I know they are really not within that, I just move on.
You thinking strategically all around, with no matter what.
We have to, especially as if we want to get, if we want to achieve our goals,
right?
We have to, especially as men of color, coming from the inner city with these different stigmas and not the resources, the relationships, the networks.
But I would say I never had that problem. Like, I think I was raised well in that way, and also due to my like sports background coming up in the city, I never had a problem honoring my elders. Like, I'm a really respectful dude. Like, I barely call people that's my elders by their first name, even if they tell me to. It's just uncomfortable for me. But I think one key thing is like explaining how we need to be more strategic and understand their position. I think that they don't spend enough time understanding the younger people's position. And I try to not make that same mistake. Like I said, I'm 31 now. I have a nephew that's 19. So I try to take the mindset when I'm communicating with him that I'm not telling him what to do. I don't know all the answers. I'm talking to him as if he's my peer, because I feel like it has to be a mutual exchange of communication. And I think a lot of people in the community, may feel like, man, I've been here 30 years fighting a good fight. And when they engage in dialogue with people that are younger than them, most of the time they are talking from an authoritarian position, and you're going to turn people off, especially young people like that, and then there's no room for organic growth for either one of you at that point, because you don't have all the answers. And then any person that walks around like that is going to turn anybody off. You know what I mean? So I think that it does have to be more effort on the older generation's part to really be open-minded to the communication they have with people that may be younger than them.
No, you're right. And I give them these business examples because it's easy. I tell them, if you look at Blockbuster, Netflix came to them. You look at MySpace, Facebook came to them. Ask Jeeves, Google. I said, but Gates was smart, and he invested in Apple. He invested in Facebook. So as you pointed out, the older people, in terms of, you may be an authority today, right? You could be an authority, but tomorrow you could be wrong. So are you innovating? Right? Are you innovating? Look at me as, all right, I'm going to back this guy and see to back the next generation so I can be sustainable. So it's not what you even create and build and sustain wealth. And part of that, as you said, and that takes a very interesting person, because people don't, unless you show them, especially people of color, unless you show them they CCC, they're not gonna. They're gonna just like, okay, this guy is pipe dream, and then as Jay say, now I just showed you, but it's 400 million later. Like, now you like,
So let me end with this. So I got a question for y'all, because again, everything relates back to the kids for me. Like that's. Because they're going to really shift this world at the end of the day. So like we all been in poverty, we all seen violence, right? Like growing up, I was fortunate enough. I don't know you guys' situation, but I was fortunate enough that I never knew my mom was broke. Like she didn't let me know that she had no money. Like, and she did everything she had to do to get me what I wanted. And as far as the violence, like again, it was just a blessing from God that. Be quite frank, all the drug dealers, when they seen trouble coming and I was around, they just, go get out of here, go somewhere, whatever like that. But
it's a beautiful thing.
But But we got it on the flip side, we got a whole bunch of kids that seen that stuff directly and is seeing it directly in the system that we're in. Let's just talk about Camden. It's 9 miles long, right? It's astonishing to me that most of the people in this community literally think this is the world, right? And they really think they have no way out. Like, so both of you guys, tell me, what would you tell a kid that literally thinks that this is just the rest of my life? Like, and that's it until I die. Like, I have no way out of this, and this is it.
Yeah, that's troubling, but it's a reality. So me, I experienced some of those things. Like I said, my mom, we actually knew that we didn't have much and experienced a lot of the violence and different things like that. Sports, one of the things would say, take mentors such as yourself, pinocching them. They were great people and providing an outlet. So my brothers and what they're doing, if they didn't have sports, we would have probably ended up dead or in jail ourselves. But now you took sports, education, and now they have an outlet, and now their kids is living different. But I would say, even kids, like even just in Camden, if we out here near Fairview or whatever, you never even been to East Camden, never been to Kramer Hill, never been to Pollock, never been downtown at the aquarium, never been to the waterfront. Like, experience here, and then know that Philly is right there. New York is literally 2 hours. You can go right from Camden. The Greyhound takes you here to New York for $30. You can get round trip. You can go to Atlanta. So I know that it's here. You surrounded yourself, and it's cultural, it's environmental. So part of what we're doing, we need to bring more opportunities and access resources and bringing some tech stuff here. And so now, even if you have to create a vision in your own mind, be able to expand that, and really you got to expand your circle. And kids don't know, because once you try to expand that circle, you need resources. So utilize people such as yourself. Now we're coming back as well, providing additional resources. You have to dream, because for the most of them, their parents, for the kids that don't have heat, no lights, no water, these different things. If you hungry, that's what you can't learn. So you can't even think, you just hungry. So now, then all of their friends are engaged to that peer pressure, right? To go ahead and join a gang or do this violence. So it's just like, all right, we're creating new avenues for you to be able to change you and your family lives. Now, all we ask you to do is be receptive and open to something new and different. So I think it's part of really the adult's job. We got to go ahead and there's resources here in Camden. They're just not allocated appropriately to us. But there's like $1 billion some that come into Camden every year. But we got to do that as community leaders and the people, adults in the community, now us, right? In terms of the old people, whatever they didn't do, it's our job to figure out how to do that, to give them access to these resources and things. We're not going to be able to save everybody, but if we stay unified and organized over time, we would be able to do so. And I think for just those young people, as my mom named, her name was Hope, definitely keep Hope alive. He's a resource. I'm a resource, as well as Rashan. He's a resource, and this generation learn technology. Right, so there's free courses at Camden County, cybersecurity. There's Keith Davis do cybersecurity, data analytics, data privacy. So you on Facebook, you on Instagram 24/7. These are the Internet of Things, but these are 21st century skills that you can learn and develop. And if you get a cybersecurity certification, you can go right out of high school, make $40,000 to $80,000. And Keith Davis, right there on Mount Ephraim, does a free program. Free program.
Of course he do. I didn't even know that.
Free.
Myself.
But it's cyber, all these skills, internet things. So I'm putting a cohort together right now for kids to learn that right here in Camden. So this is free. It's just now access to information.
No doubt.
Now we're going to give you that information, and you reach out to him, go to the source, and we're going to, change one life at a time.
There we go. What you got, Rashan?
Man, that's a deep question, because I'm sitting here thinking it through. I used to think, and I was talking to a friend about this the other day. I used to think that, like, growing up here, living here, staying here, and dying here was a bad thing. And I say that because, like you mentioned, the violence that we all grew up under, we seen people die here young. But as I matured and I started thinking about actual community development, is for young people in the community who feel like there's no way out, it doesn't have to be. If we, like Terrell said, if we bring everything here and the resources we need here, it will be, appreciated when people, are raised here, go to college, come back and stay here, or don't even go to college, start your own business. I see a lot of young sisters starting hair salons and doing different things. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. Stop looking at, like, this is all I have and there's no way out from a negative perspective, and say, how can we make this a better environment so that people don't want to leave, right? And I think a lot of communities, poor communities, whether you look at Philly, Camden, they deal with this term in academia that they call a brain drain, where like the talented kids go to college and they go to these good schools and they never come back home, which is true. You know what I mean? Because the communities haven't developed in a way to retain their talent. You know what I mean? And then a lot of our kids who are, you know, not so good, or they're not into academia and they're making mistakes and they're getting into trouble, they're funneled right through the penile system. So we have to just change our community from the inside out and stop looking at it like, man, I'm never going to leave here, but actually make people not want to leave here. Yeah. Create an environment that's a utopia in its own way, right? Like where people are excited to grow up here and stay here. You know, and it's a different way I've been trying to think about that question for a long time because, you know, even in my personal life, I remember when I first went to Penn and I was doing other stuff, I had ideas of coming back to Camden and getting involved in politics back in 2013 when the legislation first was passed way back then, when I knew the money was coming before it even hit. So I've been aware of what I wanted to do. I didn't just run for office out of the blue, right? Like these were things I was thinking about because I knew what was taking place. And I remember thinking though, like I had the choice. So when I went to DC, when I left Philly, I was thinking like, is it even worth, like, should I go back? Like, you know, I had one of those thoughts where I was like, man, it might not even worth going back. But then the brain drain thing kicked in and it's like, you know, if I don't go back or at least try to show presence and make a good faith effort to do something, then I'm setting the standard for anybody else who thinks that they're educated or they made it out to never go back. Right. And that's how we keep that cycle going. So I would say for young people who feel like there's no way out, there definitely is a way out. We're keeping that hope. Attaching to the resources we have in this community. We might not have all of the financial resources in this community yet, but it's a bunch of well-equipped people, man, from yourself, from coaches that I had in Little League, our administrators, Principal Jenkins. I don't want to name people because I know I'll leave some folks out, but there's so many good people here in the community that's doing stuff. Our young people need to just kind of be aware of what's available to them, and that's so hard because I wasn't aware of it, right? And I didn't do it. I didn't practice what I'm trying to preach when I was a kid either, but man, we have to find a way. Because like you said, they're going to change the world and they're going to transform this community. And I'm excited about it. And I'm looking forward to working with them.
Two things. Let me tell you two things.
I'm looking forward to working with y'all.
Yeah, two things that you meant. One, we won't be able to do what we're doing today without education. So being educated is cool. That's number one. Right? Because people get this stigma, you talk proper, you speaking white. Yeah. No. So being educated is definitely cool.
Well, let's say applied education.
Applied education, so yeah, exactly.
Get educated and let's start our own businesses and run our own stuff. So I think
being able to take care of your family is cool, right? So we got to really define or redefine the definition of what's really cool. That's one. And then two, I think as you mentioned too, in Singapore, when it was Lee Kuan Yew, Singapore is like the number one country in the world right now. People don't know. Everybody goes there. But they did what you said, Raj. They built it the reverse. So they built the community. Nobody wants to leave Singapore. If you chew gum, it's a fine. Literally, it's the cleanest place. It's probably the wealthiest place in America. So now you got Singapore. But what they did, they brought all the best talent from around the world to help and train and develop their people. And they paid them top dollar and everything. And now Singaporeans, everybody stay there. They grow there. They build there. And, you know, it's one of the, you know, best countries and places to be.
And that's what you call human capital investment.
Human
that's
capital.
What we need.
Yep.
So let's invest in our human capital, which is our kids, which is why you're doing this podcast, which is beautiful, man. Being a coach and bringing the education side into it with this podcast episode, I think is a beautiful thing because we're all in this together. Right. You know what I mean? We're all trying to work. We don't want to see people dying and going to jail no more. We have to move past that generation of trauma that we all have become used to. Right. You know, it has to be something new. You know, and I think we all play our small part, but we need the young people to step up to the plate.
Yeah. Let's leave it right there.
Peace. Thank y'all.
Yeah, thank y'all.
Oh, man. Damn, I got 2 for 1.
You can chop them jewels up, man.